So a few things to check for while you're priming the system is to make sure that the vent plugs on the top, the vent caps, are tight and sealed. Make sure that the drain plugs are tight and sealed. And you should be able to see, I like to set the valves flowing through both filters. So both turn to the right position, not up. So both straight across pointing to the right. And that ensures that you're pulling fuel through both filter housings and priming the entire assembly. So as you can see, one way to check and make sure you've got fuel in this housing is on this sight gauge. You can see it fill with fuel or water. On this unit, you can tell it's filled by the fact that the fuel has filled the bowl, and you may see fuel flowing through the outlet hose. A last and final step to make sure that the system is primed is by opening the lid. You can see fuel flowing or fuel stirring on the inside of the reservoir. Just gives you a good idea that the system is primed and ready for operation. To demonstrate the operation, I first like to leave it in the same configuration, so pulling through both filters, to demonstrate the water drain system on the AWD, the high-tech version. Make sure at first you've got a container of water. I've got 500 milliliters here. That's more than enough to demonstrate, or even a bottle of water would be sufficient. On the outlet side, make sure that you've got a clear container that is the same size as the fluid you're adding. So that way we're not overflowing when we're demonstrating. Open the lid to the reservoir as the system's running. You can add in, typically, I like to add maybe half the container. So I've only added about 200, 300 milliliters from that. You'll start to see it operate by first looking at the hose. As the hose becomes cloudy, you know that you're picking up emulsified fuel. Also watching the sight gauge, you can see the horizon of the water level raise quickly. As it reaches the top, it will trip at the top of the water and fuel sensor probe, tell the pump to turn on and purge that sump, drain the water off. Now if you've added a significant amount of water, so if I added that full container, this is going to continue to drain until it catches up. One thing to note is that if this drains 10 consecutive times, it will lock itself out. What you have to do to reset that is turn the power off to the system, let it power down, make sure that the power remains off for about 10 seconds, and then you can fire that unit back up. Now, if it senses water here again, it will continue to drain, and it will continue to drain 10 consecutive times before it locks out again. That's why I like to add only about 250 milliliters of water to demo, so I don't have to go through the lockout procedure. As it's draining more water, I've already collected about 200 milliliters, so I've got about 100 milliliters still in here. One thing I like to do to show the coalescing as a second step is to change the valves both at the same time to the upward position. So pointing them both up at the same time. That bypasses this filter, pulls fuel down around and into the second filter. At this point, you can take a light or a light from your cell phone, and you can use this to illustrate the water removal coalescing here. So you can show your customers, your distributors, what the water looks like as it separates, settles down to the bottom, and what coalescing really looks like. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if this fills, you have no way of draining it while the system's in operation. Reason being, it's in the vacuum side. So if I open this to drain, I'm going to pull in air. It's not going to demonstrate what we want, and it'll lose prime in the system. So one way to help, I use that as a tool to demonstrate why the automatic water drain is of value. I'll show oftentimes, well, I've got water collected, what do I do? Well, in a normal operation, when this is mounted in line with the engine, you would have to shut down the engine because you'll pull in air when you go to drain. The reason we use the auto water drain is you can switch back over, Show how this continually operates. So even as the engine's running, add the rest of the water. And show that even as the engine's running, this will continue to separate and drain water without having to shut down the engine. That is critical in critical uptime engine applications. So you can see that water just continue to fill up the sump until it reaches the top of that probe and drains off.